Hello and welcome back to Unpopular People. We believe that listening and learning from each other is key for personal development and success. Today in our interview, Tina from Texas. That's double T here, but unfortunately the first recording we did today didn't work out that well, so we do another one right away. Well, Tina is 26 years old and she studied psychology. She already finished her PhD and now she really deserves a holiday. That's why we met here in Puerto Escondido in beautiful Mexico. We want to find out more about her life and everything, and you will find out more about her by listening to this interview. If you want to find out more about Unpopular People, please visit our website www.unpopularpeople.com and sign up for our newsletter. And now enjoy this incredible interview with Tina. Hey Tina, so take number 2. Yeah, we mentioned it in the first take, but no one heard it. So we only have one microphone today because we have a lot of technical issues. And they also started moving furniture above us in this usually quiet hostel during the day. But, well, not today. Things are going against us, but we are going against things. And we're trying it one more time. So people want to find out more about you, and I also want to find out more about you. And we should start by maybe telling our listeners a little bit about your childhood. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
So I was born in Iran, in Tehran, the capital. And when I was 5 years old, my family and I immigrated outside of Iran, and they sent us to Turkey because we were refugees. And then from there, after 2 years, we were sent to the United States, to Texas specifically, as my father had a family friend who decided to support us or sponsor us, because you have to have a sponsor when you're a refugee. So they sent us there, and so yeah, I grew up in Texas ever since I was 7 years old, in Dallas. And then I moved to Houston for school, and I've been traveling across Latin America for the past year. And yeah, now I'm Puerto Escondido.
Yeah, so maybe you can also explain a little bit why were you refugees, and also it must have been very hard for your parents to come to the US from a different culture, from a different country. And do you have any siblings? Can you maybe tell us a little bit more about your family and how it was to come over as refugees in a new country with all the difficulties that came along with it?
Yeah, well, I could even write a book about all the experiences, but I'll try to very shorten it a little bit. So my family in Iran were Baha'is, and Baha'is are like a minority religion in Iran. After the Islamic Revolution in Iran, they were, along with many other people, persecuted because the Islamic regime doesn't accept Baha'i religion because it came after Islam. So because of that, a lot of my family members were sent to jail. A lot of their rights were taken away. A lot of people were killed. We were kind of treated like second-class citizens there. Our lives are constantly in danger. So because of that, we were able to basically be taken in as refugees by the International Rescue Committee to Turkey. And right when we left, actually, was 9/11. So everyone was like, "Yo, you guys are crazy leaving. They're not letting anybody in anywhere, and all the borders are closing." But we had already, we were about to already get on that train to Turkey. So we went anyways. We ended up staying in Turkey for 2 years until the borders, started to finally open up, and we were lucky enough to get across and move to the U.S. It was really a difficult experience. In Turkey, we actually had a little Baha'i Iranian community. So that was actually kind of nice. We kind of hung out there for 2 years. I know most refugees have a much more maybe difficult experience, but we were fortunate enough to have like a roof over our head, and yeah, we were living very frugally still, but we were very lucky in that we had all of our basic needs met, and we had a community there. And because they don't let you work there or go to school there, we had like 2 years of like basically doing nothing, like free time. So I actually have a lot of good memories of like just enjoying that time, honestly, with a lot of other people there. Of course, it was still difficult, and you know, our entire fate was unknown, but it was also exciting in a way because we were headed towards, you know, a better life and a better future. Then when we migrated to the US, it was a lot different. It was kind of the opposite, where we were very isolated. Suddenly we didn't have any community, any family. And then at the same time, we had to work, maybe like make up for those 2 years we didn't work. We had to work twice as hard, or at least my parents did, not me. So yeah, I have an older sister. I forgot to mention that. So it was me and her, and then our two parents, our little family of 4. Yeah, just trying to make it in the good old USA, trying to get that American dream or something, I guess. And it's not as glamorous as the movies make it seem. It's very, very difficult, and it's very rough. And you know, personally, I wouldn't choose to do it, but I didn't have a choice in that. So yeah, it's what it is, and it comes with both good and bad. You know, I don't know how deep you want me to go into that, but
yeah, thank you very much so far. And so you have an older sister, you said, and so do you recall how it was for your sister and your parents when they arrived in the US, like their struggles? Maybe you can explain it a little bit. I know we've done it before in take 1, but do it again in take 2. Exactly, now we're prepared. Yeah, it would be very nice, and I would be very grateful if you could explain it once more, and then we can go a little bit more into the depth.
Yes, so going into the US, none of us spoke English, which was the first really big barrier. If you ever move to a new country and you don't speak the language, it's quite difficult at first. And my parents, yeah, they had to kind of be thrown into immediately working like the lowest class jobs, lowest form of jobs they usually give to teenagers, and they were like 30, 40-year-old people. So it was really difficult for them to kind of, we were talking about how they have to like swallow their ego and just kind of start from nothing all over again. And they have been working really hard ever since then, to be honest. My mom worked in 7-Eleven for a really long time, and that was like her first job, and she worked there until maybe 6-7 years ago. And my dad worked as a carpenter, and he was a carpenter in Iran, but he had his own business. However, in the US, he had to work for somebody else, and he was really like kind of like a handyman. So for him, it was a little bit difficult as well. Yeah, it's just in general, it's very hard to be an immigrant anywhere in the world. I think you have to let go of a lot of your own attachments, a lot of your own identity. You have to figure out how the heck you're going to survive in this new culture, how things work, what you have to do, what are the norms, what is, yeah, I don't know, what's the way to survive. And it's really difficult. But after a while, you get acclimated and you get accustomed to it, and it gets a little bit easier. But you always do feel slightly kind of out of place, and like it doesn't fully ever feel like you're home. Like my parents still to this day don't really fully feel like the US is their home. But you kind of have to make it your home. Home is where the heart is, they say. So yeah.
Do you remember like things that you and your family found like very funny or amusing, like things that you were usually laughing about, like a certain behavior or something like people did like in the US? Like, can you tell us like something like that maybe? Yeah.
Again, I think like a lot of immigrants can relate to this, but everything that Americans did for, especially my parents, but most of us, were really funny and just strange in every way. I mean, we were like, what? I mean, so this, like, for example, my mom wouldn't understand why people would come to the store at 7-Eleven and buy like pre-made eggs. She was like, why don't they just make the eggs at home? Like, why do they eat just pre-made whole boiled eggs? Like, it's so strange, and they pay so much money for it. It's not even fresh. Like, it's a lot of, I mean, the US is just really generally an interesting kind of strange place in a lot of ways, but filled with a lot of different kinds of people and things. But there's so many things. I don't even know where to begin. It just felt like even when we stepped into the US, it just felt like literally the world was just upside down. Like nothing made any sense. Nothing anyone did made any sense. It was so confusing. A lot of it was funny. A lot of it was difficult. A lot of it was confusing, you know. It's just like I was saying before, like you're coming from a very communal, traditional Asian or Eastern culture to a very individualistic and modern Western culture there. I mean, like on the polar sides of the extreme and spectrum. So it's about as different as it can get in a way. And yeah, it was for sure a process. And to this day, it's still a process trying to juggle those two cultures and figure out like, I don't know, what's right and wrong and what you need to do.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And I also want to know, do you have like a very like open relationship to your parents? So can you speak about everything, or is culture or maybe religion still a big issue with you growing up in the US instead of Iran?
Yeah, again, I'm going to say this as a preface to every statement, but most immigrants also probably experience this. It's really hard to be able to connect with your parents when you have a completely different environment and upbringing than they do, a completely different culture. For sure, for us and for almost any and every immigrant I've known, there's a lot of things you cannot really express to your parents. Of course, it just depends on the person, the parents, and how open they are or how open-minded they are. But my parents were quite relatively, like, I think, traditional, and I think they were scared. They were in this whole new place with all this freedom and things they maybe saw taboo or something, and they were really scared that we were going to just get overwhelmed by that or dragged into something that they, you know, parents like want to protect their kids and they didn't know how to, and a lot of times they were really strict on us because they were really afraid that they would lose us in that way. And it has its, you know, I understand now that I'm older, but of course when I was younger, I didn't get why they were like that, and I would compare them to my American friends, and I would be like, why can they do this and I can't, and why are my parents so? But actually, for me, it really sunk in when I went to Iran, when I visited Iran after like the second time I visited Iran after moving to the US. Suddenly I was like, oh, everybody's parents are like this. It's not just my parents, not crazy. It's just like culture, you know, like everything started to make so much sense. And even re-meeting my family and reconnecting with them started to help me understand why my parents are the way they are, why their traits and their personalities, like where they come from, you know, it's passed down in generations. And like, you realize like a lot of things you're not conscious of it, and it's not your fault. It's just things that you inherit from your family in a way, right? Whether it's good or bad. So yeah, it was really, it was quite interesting, but definitely had a lot of struggles with that as well.
And so where do you think does it come from that people get treated like teenagers, or like even if they have like a profession and they're really good in something, and you told us that your dad is a carpenter, and so he has this profession, but you also told us in take one that he worked at 7-Eleven first, and at 7-Eleven, or like we experienced it as well in different countries. If you do like an easy job and still people treat you like you're an idiot, you don't know what you're doing, and because you have a funny accent or you look different to them, or like in your private time you do different things than the people around you, so you're a widow, you know, like what's wrong with you, and they treat you very strange. Like, where do you think does it come from? Because even if you have a profession, you can't live this profession when you come to a new place.
Yeah, so when it comes to cultures and societies, it's all about hierarchy, status, which is like comes from social norms and values. So what is that culture value? What is normal for them? So like you were saying, if you are different from them in whatever way, then automatically that's like a signal for them to treat you as a little bit differently, right? As far as like being kind of condescending or belittling you a little bit, like you're treating you like a child, I think unfortunately by default a lot of people sense that because you don't speak that language you're a little bit more vulnerable, and because you're vulnerable, whether they're conscious of it or not, they kind of might take advantage of you. They feel like they can say whatever they want to you. You can't fight back. They can treat you however you want. They can use you, which is horrible. And but it is unfortunately kind of how it's just kind of human nature in a way. And I think that's probably where part of that part comes from. Yeah.
And what do you think could we do as a society or as an individual to go against that behavior, like social behavior that we practice every day?
You can work on yourself, obviously, and try to be treat everybody with respect, of course, and try to something like someone quoted once is like everyone is you living a different life. So if you imagine that, I think you can easily have a lot more compassion for people. So for example, like you're me if I was a German man, like who, I don't know, had your life, and you know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, everyone, you have to kind of see them as, in a way, like you, like an extension of yourself. And to me, that's the key to having compassion and the start of a lot of great things. For a lot of people, again, it's not a default thing. It's something you really have to be conscious of, or really maybe your parents have to have ingrained you, or culture has to ingrain you with that kind of value. But I would say that's a good way to view it and try to sympathize with people. That's just anecdotal. It's not like psychology or anything.
Yeah, but I totally agree with that as well, because I think like nothing in our life is actually chosen. Like I didn't choose to be born in Germany. I didn't choose to be a man and white skin and, like those things. And for you, the same, like nothing in your life was chosen. And if we understand that like is for everyone around us. And so this is something I struggle with sometimes when people say like, oh, you just have to, do like hard work and do this. But if you're like a migrant family from Iran that gets treated differently, and or like from anywhere else, and if you arrive at a certain place or you have a certain type of personality, or maybe like your physical appearance is different than to like the things other people are used to, they don't understand that this was not chosen by you, that was given to you by randomness, or by God, or whoever you want to be make responsible for this. So yeah, I think this is very helpful, like what you just said, like you are me, like just from like in a different body, in a different reality, or whatever you can call it. Nice, very interesting. And what I want to know is, so you studied psychology, you did your PhD in there, which is impressive, and so congratulations for this. But do you think all this background knowledge you have about like behaviors of people around you, and also like coming to a new country and learning all this and experiencing this from like a child's point of view, and seeing like your parents and your older sister getting along with this, like do you think like you studied or you did psychology because of this, or what were the reasons you started in this field?
Yeah, to be honest, with psychology specifically, I just remember going to a chain store in the US called Ross with my mom one day, and seeing this book about like optical illusions, and I was so fascinated by how it's possible. To me, it was the closest thing to magic, and I was like, I want to do whatever that is. And I was for a long time I was like trying to figure out what the heck can explain these like illusions, optical illusions, and seemingly magic tricks. And it turned out to be cognitive psychology. So I was like, oh, that's it. I want to be a psychologist. That was like early part. But I think as I grew a little bit older and I started to really be able to think about things more logically or analytically, for sure, like I still to this day have a fascination with anthropology and viewing things from different perspectives, understanding different cultural views, because I grew up truly in like a totally bicultural world, and like totally different views. Like my home life and my core and my background was so totally different than what was outside of my home and what was in my in social environment with my peers. So yeah, I was always comparing those two things. I was always trying to find out why people acted the way they did, why I was the way I was, trying to understand people in general, right? It was really just really interesting to me. So I think to a certain extent, yeah, it did affect why I chose what I chose. And to now, I my recent like dissertation was about people's backgrounds and how that influences their values in work, which for sure has to do with my own multicultural background, and I'm trying to low key like answer my own questions, but also doing it through science to help other people as well.
Very cool. And how did your parents react when you told them that you want to study psychology? And how did you manage it? Because as far as I know, I've never lived in the US, but going to university can be quite expensive, right? So, like, how did you manage all this? And how did your parents react? I'm very curious.
Yeah, actually, my parents were pretty supportive. My mom loved psychology herself and wanted to be a psychologist. Unfortunately, because she was Baha'i, she couldn't, and a woman in Iran, she really couldn't have a career or go to college even in Iran. So she never got to pursue that dream, but she thought it was really cool and supported me, and so did my father. For a lot of Iranians, education is super important, and their kids having education is like expected. Actually, a lot of Asian parents in general, it's like for some reason, it's just very important that their kids are highly educated. Like I remember, like every time I would talk to my grandma in Iran, she would be like, so when are you getting that degree? When are you gonna be a doctor? Make us proud. And it's a lot of pressure actually, because you're constantly, they expect you to like kind of like win the Nobel Prize or something. And you're like, I'm only 11, you know, but so yeah, that was expected. Like going to college was for sure expected, which I appreciate now, and I totally understand it. I don't believe it should be forced, or to that extent it should be emphasized, but it is important for sure. And I'm really thankful and grateful for it. And so, yeah, they were really supportive. As far as the costs go, I was very fortunate in that, well, I went to community college first, which was very inexpensive in the US. Community colleges are inexpensive. I got some financial aid from the government because of, thankfully, they had like some government programs where if you were making less than a certain income, or your family was making less than a certain income, they would help you out. So, and then also my grades were really good, so I got scholarships because of that. So actually my undergrad, I finished for free because I just got so much financial help and scholarships. Yeah, so it was great. And then after a while, I entered a PhD program, which in the US is also free. So technically, well, you work and you get paid for it, so you don't really have to take out much loans. I did take out a little bit, but not that much. Yeah.
Oh, but it's very good. And it's also, I think, very good to hear from other people in the US that, want to do something like this. Because I think sometimes people are afraid of the costs and all the things that come with education. Because many countries in the whole world, like most of the countries in the world, like education is very expensive. Like even in Germany, people always think like education is for free when it comes to universities, but it's not necessarily for free, because sometimes you have to move to another city and you have to find an apartment and you have to like have different costs. You know, of course, you don't have to pay to go to the university, but you still have to pay for the life around it. And as a student, you have to have proper food to be able to study accordingly and, like do all the things. So you must have been a good student then, getting all the scholarships and everything. So yeah, good on you. And what would you recommend to other people that want to go into this field? Like, is it only the passion for like the, psychology itself, or is it something else that drives you to get good marks and get all the scholarships?
For me, I think psychology came very naturally to me. I was always naturally analyzing people. I was studying people's behavior, and to me, it just kind of made sense. I think for most people, it just, because you're learning about yourself, I think people spend a lot of time thinking about themselves and thinking about their lives and how they spend a lot of time with their own thoughts, right? So I think that's why psychology is fascinating for almost everyone. I don't know, I've never met someone who's not interested in psychology. Of course, you're learning about yourself. Who doesn't want to learn about that? As far as like studying it for a career, I think a lot of people are discouraged because it's not the most financially rewarding necessarily a lot of times. And a lot of people are very uninformed about psychology because they think that there's only the clinical route and you can only be a therapist. And that's the only thing you can do as a psychologist, which is very far from the truth. Like there are a million sub-branches and fields. Actually, the field that I study, organizational psychology, it can be very lucrative. You can make a lot of money in it because you would work for organizations and companies and stuff like that if you're interested. So yeah, for anyone who is interested in psychology, I think it's super versatile. You can apply it to anywhere. It helps you personally a lot. It helps you understand yourself, others. And you can make money with it. You can do whatever you want with it. So yeah, I think anyone can study it if they want to.
Yeah, that's what we want to hear. And also, I think instead of minimizing psychology to counseling or to like therapy or whatever, you did an interesting project. You told us about this last night or the day before. It has to do with ergonomy. And maybe you can elaborate a little bit about this project, because I found it fascinating what you told us there.
Yeah, so I'm going to disclaimer, I'm not an ergonomist, so I don't know, I'm not an expert on the ergonomy side of things. But we did work with ergonomists and architects to basically design workplaces that are healthy, that are good for overall health, both physically and mentally for people. We kind of like pitched it to companies as a way of like increasing people's productivity, but in reality, it's more about just people's well-being. So what we did, it was a series of projects, so they were all a little bit different. The one that had to do with designing specifically healthy workplaces was mostly had to do with like offices. So you think about like your typical work office, right? And it's just like the very stereotypical cubicle offices. I don't know, that design where it's like really just a million small little similar cubicles in a gray box in a gray office, just horrible like fluorescent lighting and just the worst kind of, it's like a prison, it's like factory prison environment where you're working a dead-end job and most people are not really super happy in that environment. So with this kind of project, we were trying to change that up a little bit. We're trying to introduce the importance of incorporating natural elements into your work environment, making it a little bit more human, making it a little bit more natural, incorporating something called biophilia, which is basically trying to utilize like natural patterns or things that you observe in the natural wilderness into man-made settings. So for example, like including a lot of plants, using wood, using natural colors, ventilation. I think like here at Puerto Escondido, this hostel we're staying does a good job of that at like the rooftop bar, right? It's like open ventilation, plenty of sunlight, plenty of plants. It makes you feel like not as miserable as you would in like a cubicle kind of place. So working with that and ergonomists in terms of like designing where you sit and where you work and what's the most comfortable or less sedentary way of working, how you can socialize with other people more. Can we design an environment that socializes people more? It's a lot that goes into it as well. I can go deep into that if you have specific questions.
Yeah, I do. First of all, have you seen the TV show Severance on Apple TV Plus? It's actually very interesting. It's what they do is they have they create two different consciousness, like one consciousness that only is at work, and the other consciousness is only like in their private life, and they separate them both, so they don't know what they do at work, and the person at work doesn't know what they do at home. So they leave the office and they walk back into the door. Like that's how they experience this, and it's because it's a lot related to what you just explained, and they work in this cubicle, and it's a very strange world. You should definitely check it out. But my question is actually, first of all, did you work with senses and stuff as well? And what did you find out there? Because I heard that it is a lot connected with memory as well. And can you like activate certain parts of the brain with this? And did you find out stuff about this during your work?
Yeah, it's a relatively new field, so there's actually not very much research on this. A lot of the stuff we were doing was super exploratory, and we did slightly tap into the senses. We were working with a creative a fashion company, so there were a lot of creatives in that office, and they were all about their visuals, the smell, like they were really all about the senses. And we were basically, part of it was like trying to get feedback from the employees, like what do you guys want, what helps you work, right? So some of them would come up with ideas like, oh, we would like a room where there's different colors, or there's like a screen that's changing the scenery. We want a place where we can like create stuff on the walls, like make a cushion on the wall, or make stuff that has different textures, that it's inspiring for us. As far as smell goes, like it's really important to obviously not have like an agitating smell. Like if you're gonna have a kitchen, you don't want it to be, with like where you're working, right? So you have that separate. The ventilation is really super important. A lot of offices, they don't have ventilation. So what happens is they're recycling this old air that you're breathing, and it's super unhealthy for you. It actually causes a lot of issues with your lung and your overall health. A lot of offices have mold or dust that they don't take care of because, I don't know, it's an old office. So those things are really, really important, and definitely things you should consider, but not very many organizations really care about that kind of stuff yet. It seems like it's not worth the investment for them yet. Hopefully they catch up.
And I try to keep COVID-related questions out of it, but when did you do like this research, and because now talking about recycled air and everything, did you find out anything about like masks and wearing of masks in offices, and how this changed the work environment? Is there a dog coming in? Okay. Okay. Actually, with our study we did before COVID, so it was we didn't include the mask, but actually it was really, I was thinking about the whole time during the pandemic and how everything was going to be, and how it suddenly what we were studying became really interesting for a lot of people, and a lot of people, especially working from home, like wanted to know how to do it and how to design their workspace and what's optimal for them, or with masks, for example, like how to have fresh air. I'm sure it's become a more popular thing, but no, we did it before COVID, so we didn't really get to I didn't really at least get to learn a lot about that, unfortunately. Okay, and what the outcome of your work in this field? Is there anywhere where people can find out more about this, or is there like did you write? Is your PhD about the same topic, or was this about a different topic? And
yeah, my PhD is not about this topic, actually. This was a few years ago. However, the people that I worked with, they are a organization of psychologists, ergonomists, architects, and it's called Interdisciplinary Center for Healthy Workplaces at UC Berkeley, and they're truly like the world's experts in these topics. Are all teaming together to work on these projects, and they're working for a lot of tech companies because it's headquartered in the Bay Area, where a lot of tech companies are. So yeah, you can check out the Interdisciplinary Center for Healthy Workplaces if you want to learn more about this stuff. I'm no longer working with them, but they're still, I think, operating and doing good work.
And your PhD, can you tell us a little bit about the work you've done there?
Yeah, so I've kind of dabbled in a lot of different things. So it's kind of, I don't have necessarily one specific area I specialized in. So this was one of them, for example, like environmental psychology or this kind of healthy workplaces stuff. Another area I was really interested in this, the influence of technology on people. I wanted to see what's like the most natural way we can use technology, basically, which is really hard to, it's like, it seems like technology is the anti-natural, thing. And that to me was really fascinating. I did my master's thesis on whether technology helps or hurts people in the end, their overall well-being. The results were kind of inconclusive of my study because I used super old data. It was not the best study, to be honest, from like the 90s. It was very outdated. And my most recent research, my dissertation, was about how people's backgrounds influence their work values. So again, I'm getting more back into the cultural stuff again, and I really wanted to know, like, I felt like a lot of science in general was really biased. Psychology, I felt, was super biased because most of the work was from people from Western culture, basically, and certain ideals and values and ideas. And I wanted to know, like, do the things that we value so much in a Western world, are they as valuable in an Eastern world, or people from different cultures? So my dissertation kind of looked at how people's, and also just different aspects of your culture. It doesn't have to be your nationality or ethnicity or race or anything like that. It can also be your social class, like your socioeconomic status and stuff. So we looked at that and how people's whether if they're from a wealthier background, from a less wealthy background, from their age, their cultural, ethnic background, whether those things affected what they valued. And what I found for my dissertation, it was pretty exploratory, but what I found was that really the biggest difference is that people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds tended to value salary and compensation more than people who were from a higher background. We think that it's possible because maybe it's more of a priority for them to make money, so maybe they need to prioritize that. Whereas if you're more privileged, maybe you're like you have more of an opportunity to choose whatever you want and go after more intrinsic things. But it was just one study, so it's hard to make any conclusions. But yeah.
Nice. And so now you're in Mexico, and you told us that you're already here for 1 year, and I don't know, how long do you want to stay? And do your parents and your sister miss you at home? And how did they react when you told them you're going away backpacking?
So yeah, actually, that's a good question. I don't think they're not necessarily happy or sad about it. I think they're also being open-minded. Of course, I think every parent is probably worried about their kid backpacking anywhere in the planet. But I think my sister, when she was younger, she was like 17, and she just called my parents one day, and she was like, "I'm in Paris." And they were like, "What?" They were like, "We thought you were at your friend's house." She was like, "No, I'm literally in France." And so I think that kind of set them up for my decisions backpacking, even though I was telling you earlier, it's not very normal for like an Iranian American to backpack by herself, especially a girl. So they don't really understand it. They don't know anyone who's done it. But they're being really cool and understanding to their best of their ability. So, but yeah, I think, I've lived apart from them for a while, so we've gotten used to like not being around each other, but they definitely miss me and I miss them too. I think I'll be going back to visit them in a few weeks. And yeah, being immigrants, like having just the four of us really made us really close and dependent on each other in a way. So I think we're really coming to terms with that now.
Nice. That's good to hear. And also, I mean, Mexico is not very far from Texas, so it's just like a 2-hour flight or something from here, so that's actually good. Yeah, I'm very, very happy to hear all this, and I think it's very inspirational for many young girls out there, or boys, whoever wants to do something with their life and maybe is interested in psychology or finding out more about themselves or finding out more about why the things around them happen as they do because of different people they interact with in their lives and whatever. And like won't be a solution for everything. There's no answer for everything. It's always a journey, like everything you do, like as you experience yourself, like the journey from Iran coming to the US is a journey, like the studying psychology is a journey, and then afterwards, you know, like you're not running away from something, you're running towards something, and you travel because you want to find out more about life, probably more about yourself, and it always helps. I can tell everyone out there it's always good to try new things, and as you can hear today from Tina, it's always a good choice to try something new. So we have a few questions that we always ask. There's one question which is related to the name of our show, which is Unpopular People, and because you're not popular, you're not known all over the world. But is there something you would do differently if you were popular, if you would fill the stadiums and if you like have thousands of people in front of you, and if you make one tweet on Twitter, everyone would read it? Like, what would you say to the people out there?
Wow, that's a big, big responsibility question. I would try to spread, I don't know, love as much as I could. I would say love is always the answer. The message of unity, that I think we're all in this thing together in a way, and we got to help each other out. Life is hard, you know, it's tough. And I think other people can be there to teach you lessons, but also to help you along the way, you know? So yeah, let's take care of each other, be good to each other. I would spread the message of compassion and love for sure.
And you should always also publicize your studies and the work you're doing, because I think it's fascinating, and especially this field is very good for like companies out there that want to improve the work environment, that want to improve the health of the workers. Because in the end, if you don't have healthy workers, you don't have a healthy company, and then it won't work in the end anyway. So yeah, please continue working in this field if you can, if you want to, of course. Another question that I always like to ask, because you said love is always an answer, or love is a solution. How did you say? Love is always the answer. Yeah, I really like that. And I really believe in education, because I think education is very often an answer to. But so imagine you had a school full of kids. What subjects would they have? Like, what do you think kids need to learn in this world we're living in?
Oh man, not thought about these questions before. Again, I really believe in working together. I think teamwork and cooperation, community is so important. And in a healthy way, not in an overly sacrificial way. Like in Buddhism, they have kind of like compassion and wisdom. Compassion is just obviously having a lot of empathy and understanding other people. But then wisdom is knowing that you also, life can be, well, compassion for yourself as well, not just everybody else. But wisdom is knowing that life can be really rough, you know? It's not always rainbows and butterflies. It's not always, you know, we're animals. We're still animals, right? We have to be really realistic about that. I think the most important thing I would teach kids is the balance between those two things, a balance between opting for love and compassion, but understanding groundedness, understanding wisdom, practicalness. I would teach them a lot of like wisdom and life lessons, and compassion comes with that. And I think you can teach that in the form of religion. You can teach that in the form of spirituality. You can teach that even with psychology, even a lot of disciplines. It's almost everything is like, to me, is saying the same thing and preaching the same message. So in the end, I think I would tell them, I would try to teach them this balance of both having compassion and wisdom.
What's your opinion on meditation?
Ooh, I love to meditate. I love it. I think it's so important. I think everyone should do it. I think it's so crucial. And well, like meditation can come in many forms. I think people think it's always like Om and closing your eyes. And no, you can just be, kids meditate all the time, you know? They like staring at their hand, staring at a plant, looking at a bug. Like, meditation is just being present. It's really about being very conscious of being present, being very conscious of the emotions that come and go, not identifying with them. Even dancing, like losing yourself in dancing or singing is a form of meditation. Like Sufis, like for example, the twirling dervishes. I don't know if you know about them. Like in Islam, they have like a mystic Sufis, they call them, like Rumi, the poet. He was a Sufi. And they, like in Turkey, a way of meditating and being closer to God. What they do, they have these long white skirts and long white hats. I don't know if you've seen them. And they twirl around themselves. And so that's a form of meditation because it's like just being super present, you know. I love meditation. I think anyone can do it at any time. It doesn't have to be sitting and saying Om in silence. Anyone can do it, and it's really important.
What's your meditation practice? Maybe people can learn a bit from you.
Again, I do all kinds of meditation, like every kind. I do when I really need to really concentrate. I'm not in the mood to meditate, but I know I need to. I do Vipassana meditation. I don't know if you're familiar with that, where you're just basically sitting in silence and focus on your breathing exactly. And like how I do it is like if a thought comes, I just label it as a thought. I don't identify with it. If emotion comes, I acknowledge it. Oh, it's just an emotion. I let it come and I let it go. If I hear a sound, I just acknowledge it as a sound. I let it come and I let it go. To me, that's my favorite type of meditation. But of course, I do all the fun other stuff too as well, dancing, singing, whatever.
Loving kindness meditation and all those things, walking meditation and with sound, and there's a lot out there. It's always a good way to start with something. And I have one last question, and then we come to the end. And this question is it's a bit of a bigger question, but you can answer it as short or as long as you want. But what's your opinion on free will?
Wow, it's really a big question. I didn't come prepared. Wow, free will. I feel it both is and is not real in a way. I think for me personally, I believe everything happens for a reason. I think everything is part of something bigger that we may not be conscious of or understand. I think everything has already happened. We're just living one reality in this present moment in time of whatever is to happen. And I think that we are supposed to believe in free will. I don't know necessarily if it's objectively real or not, because I think everything happens for a reason. Like I said, it's already happened. But I think that, I don't know, I think without it, we wouldn't really be human, and we wouldn't really be able to fulfill the human experience. So I think we're supposed to believe in free will, and whether it's an illusion or not, I think most of us have no choice but to practice it in some way. So yeah.
Yeah, nice. Thank you very much. It all leads up to the same thing, you know, like we talked about where are people born and that we don't have a choice about this. And also we talked about meditation, you know, like the present moment, like just because everything that we experience has already passed. So like just acknowledging this moment is very, very precious. So I think those things are very important and to take from this conversation we had today. So I said enough, and you haven't. I think there is a lot of things that I want to find out more, and but we have the time to have more conversations because we're staying in the same hostel together. But where can people find out more about you? Is there anywhere where they can get in touch with you? Are you okay with people getting in touch? We also have a community, the Unpopular People community, where people can get in touch with us and find out more about you if you want us to connect people with you. Or do you want to share like your Facebook or Instagram or like anything you like? If you want the popularity, there you go.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, if everyone wants to connect, they can find me on Instagram. My Instagram is at Tini Zucchini, TINIZUCCHINI. Yeah, I would love to be part of the community. I think it's interesting to meet people. So if you want to contact me, send me a message on there.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you today. We definitely put all the things you said in the show notes, also with the company you work with for your studies, and maybe if there's like your PhD, people can find something about this online. Please share the links with me and or with us, and I will put them online so people can find it easier. And also Tini Zucchini, like the spelling and everything. We put this in the show notes so people can find out more. Well, thank you very much for listening today. As I said before, I said enough, and I say goodbye from my side now. And if there are any final words from your side, now is the time for it.
No, thank you for interviewing me. That's all. Thank you for having me, giving me the space and time to share my story. And hopefully, I don't know, anyone listening feels some way connected or related to this or learned something new. And just spread love to everybody out there.